1 Kings 19. Elijah flees from Jezebel. Now Ahab told Jezebel everything that Elijah had done, and how he had killed all the prophets with the sword. Then Jezebel sent a messenger to Elijah, saying, "So may the gods do to me and more so, if by about this time tomorrow I do not make your life like the life of one of them." And he was afraid, and got up and ran for his life and came to Beersheba, which belongs to Judah, and he left his servant there. But he himself went a day's journey into the wilderness, and came and sat down under a broom tree, and he asked for himself to die and said, "Enough! Now, Lord, take my life, for I am no better than my fathers." Then he lay down and fell asleep under a broom tree. But behold, there was an angel touching him, and he said to him, "Arise, eat." And he looked, and behold, there was at his head a round loaf of bread baked on hot coals, and a pitcher of water. So he ate and drank and lay down again. But the angel of the Lord came back a second time and touched him and said, "Arise, eat, because the journey is too long for you." So he arose and ate and drank, and he journeyed in the strength of that food for 40 days and 40 nights to Horeb, the mountain of God. Elijah at Horeb. Then he came there to a cave and spent the night there. And behold, the word of the Lord came to him, and he said to him, "What are you doing here, Elijah?" And he said, "I have been very zealous for the Lord, the God of armies, for the sons of Israel have abandoned your covenant, torn down your altars, and killed your prophets with the sword. And I alone am left, and they have sought to take my life." So he said, "Go out and stand on the mountain before the Lord." And behold, the Lord was passing by, and a great and powerful wind was tearing out the mountains and breaking the rocks in pieces before the Lord. But the Lord was not in the wind. And after the wind there was an earthquake, but the Lord was not in the earthquake. And after the earthquake a fire, but the Lord was not in the fire. And after the fire a sound of a gentle blowing. When Elijah heard it, he wrapped his face in his cloak and went out and stood in the entrance of the cave. And behold, a voice came to him and said, "What are you doing here, Elijah?" Then he said, "I have been very zealous for the Lord, the God of armies, for the sons of Israel have abandoned your covenant, torn down your altars, and killed your prophets with the sword. And I alone am left, and they have sought to take my life." The Lord said to him, "Go, return on your way to the wilderness of Damascus, and when you have arrived, you shall anoint Hazael king over Aram. You shall also anoint Jehu the son of Nimshi king over Israel, and you shall anoint Elisha the son of Shaphat of Abel-Meholah as prophet in your place. And it shall come about that the one who escapes from the sword of Hazael, Jehu shall put to death, and the one who escapes from the sword of Jehu, Elisha shall put to death. Yet I will leave 7,000 in Israel, all the knees that have not bowed to Baal and every mouth that has not kissed him." So he departed from there and found Elisha the son of Shaphat while he was plowing, with 12 yoke of oxen in front of him, and he with the 12. And Elijah came over to him and threw his cloak on him. Then he left the oxen behind and ran after Elijah and said, "Please let me kiss my father and my mother, then I will follow you." And he said to him, "Go back, for what have I done to you?" So he returned from following him, and took the pair of oxen and sacrificed them, and cooked their meat with the implements of the oxen, and gave it to the people, and they ate. Then he got up and followed Elijah and served him. 1 Kings 20. War with Aram. Now Benhadad, king of Aram, gathered all his army, and there were 32 kings with him, and horses and chariots. And he went up and besieged Samaria, and fought against it. Then he sent messengers to the city to Ahab, king of Israel, and said to him, "This is what Benhadad says, Your silver and your gold are mine, your most beautiful wives and children are also mine." And the king of Israel replied, "As you say, my lord, O king, I am yours as well as all that I have." Then the messengers returned and said, "Benhadad says this, I did indeed send word to you, saying, You shall give me your silver, your gold, your wives, and your children. But about this time tomorrow I will send my servants to you, and they will search your house and the houses of your servants, and they will take in their hands everything that is pleasing to your eyes, and take it all away." Then the king of Israel summoned all the elders of the land and said, "Please be aware and see that this man is looking for trouble. For he sent me his demand for my wives, my children, my silver, and my gold, and I did not refuse him. Then all the elders and all the people said to him, Do not listen nor consent. So he said to the messengers of Benhadad, Tell my lord the king, everything that you sent as a demand to your servant at the first, I will do, but this thing I cannot do. Then the messengers departed, and brought him word again. Benhadad sent word to him and said, May the gods do so to me and more so, if the dust of Samaria will be enough for handfuls for all the people who follow me. Then the king of Israel replied, Tell him, he who straps on his weapons had better not boast like one who takes them off. And when Benhadad heard this message, while he was drinking with the kings in the temporary shelters, he said to his servants, Take your positions. So they took their positions against the city. Ahab victorious. Now behold, a prophet approached Ahab king of Israel and said, This is what the Lord says. Have you seen all this great multitude? Behold, I am going to hand them over to you today, and you shall know that I am the Lord. But Ahab said, By whom? So he said, The Lord says this, By the young men of the leaders of the provinces. Then he said, Who will begin the battle? And he said, You will. So he mustered the young men of the leaders of the provinces, and there were 232, and after them he mustered all the people, all the sons of Israel, 7,000. They went out at noon, while Benhadad was drinking himself drunk in the temporary shelters with the 32 kings who were helping him. The young men of the leaders of the provinces went out first, and Benhadad sent out scouts, and they reported to him, saying, Men have come out from Samaria. Then he said, If they have come out for peace, take them alive, or if they have come out for war, take them alive as well. So these men went out from the city, the young men of the leaders of the provinces, and the army which followed them. And they killed, each one his man. And the Arameans fled and Israel pursued them. And Benhadad the king of Aram escaped on a horse with horsemen. The king of Israel also went out and struck the horses and chariots, and killed the Arameans in a great slaughter. Then the prophet approached the king of Israel and said to him, Go, show yourself courageous and be aware and see what you have to do, for at the turn of the year the king of Aram will march against you. Now the servants of the king of Aram said to him, Their gods are gods of the mountains, for that reason they were stronger than we. But let us fight them in the plain, and we will certainly be stronger than they. Carry out this plan, remove the kings each from his place and put governors in their place, and muster an army like the army that you have lost, horse for horse and chariot for chariot. Then we will fight against them in the plain, and we will certainly be stronger than they. And he listened to their voice and did so. Another Aramean war. So at the turn of the year Benhadad mustered the Arameans and went up to Aphek to fight against Israel. And the sons of Israel were mustered and given provisions, and they went to meet them. And the sons of Israel camped opposite them like two little flocks of goats, while the Arameans filled the country. Then a man of God approached and spoke to the king of Israel and said, This is what the Lord says, since the Arameans have said, The Lord is a God of mountains, but he is not a God of valleys. Therefore I will hand over to you all this great multitude, and you shall know that I am the Lord. So they camped, one opposite the other, for 7 days. And on the 7th day the battle was joined, and the sons of Israel killed of the Arameans 100,000 foot soldiers in a single day. But the rest fled to Aphek into the city, and the wall fell on 27,000 men who were left. And Benhadad fled and came into the city, going from one inner room to another. But his servants said to him, Behold now, we have heard that the kings of the house of Israel are merciful kings. Please let's put sackcloth around our waists and ropes on our heads, and go out to the king of Israel. Perhaps he will let you live. So they put sackcloth around their waists and ropes on their heads, and came to the king of Israel and said, Your servant Benhadad says, Please let me live. And Ahab said, Is he still alive? He is my brother. Now the men took this as a good omen, and quickly accepting it from him they said, Your brother Benhadad. Then he said, Go bring him. Then Benhadad came out to him, and he had him mount the chariot. And Benhadad said to him, The cities which my father took from your father I will restore, and you can make streets for yourself in Damascus, as my father made in Samaria." Ahab said, "And I will let you go with this covenant." So he made a covenant with him and let him go. Now a man from the sons of the prophets said to another by the word of the Lord, "Please strike me." But the man refused to strike him. Then he said to him, "Because you have not listened to the voice of the Lord, behold, as soon as you leave me, a lion will kill you." And as soon as he left him, a lion found him and killed him. Then he found another man and said, "Please strike me." And the man struck him, injuring him. So the prophet departed and waited for the king by the road, and disguised himself with a bandage over his eyes. And as the king passed by, he cried out to the king and said, "Your servant went out into the midst of the battle, and behold, a man turned aside and brought a man to me and said, 'Guard this man. If for any reason he goes missing, then your life shall be forfeited in place of his life, or else you shall pay a talent of silver.' Now while your servant was busy here and there, he disappeared." And the king of Israel said to him, "So shall your judgment be. You yourself determined it." Then he quickly took the bandage away from his eyes, and the king of Israel recognized him, that he was one of the prophets. And the prophet said to him, "This is what the Lord says. Since you have let go from your hand the man I had designated for destruction, your life shall be forfeited in place of his life, and your people in place of his people." So the king of Israel went to his house sullen and furious, and came to Samaria.